Good afternoon. It's Monday, September 21. I'm Vashan Brown with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. The government says it will be appealing Friday's Supreme Court decision that the detention of 5 men under the states of emergency was unlawful and unconstitutional. The 5 men had been detained in states of emergency in Westmoreland, St. Andrews South and East Kingston. More in this report.
Since the ruling on Friday, there have been queries regarding the Emergency Powers Act. Justice Bertram Morrison, who handed down the judgment, said there were 68 conflicts found in the Emergency Powers Regulation, making it unlawful. But speaking to TVJ News yesterday, Attorney General Marlene Malahoo Fort says the ruling has raised several issues which must be clarified by a higher court.
I have read the judgment of the court of Justice Bertram Morrison. I believe that it raises many important questions of constitutional law and procedure, and we will have to seek guidance from the appeal courts on it. So whatever views and comments I have, I believe will be reflected in the grounds of appeal filed.
The ruling also said the detentions were an egregious overstepping of the bounds of the power of the executive, in part because the emergency powers allowed the Minister of National Security to sign detention orders known as executive detention. President of the Cornwall Bar Association, Lambert Johnson, says it all comes down to the Separation of Powers Act.
We always knew it was wrong for the police to detain persons without the intervention of the court, because it breaches the long established and hallowed principle and precept of separation of powers. So when a minister is going to sign a detention order that can essentially have you in custody for many, many months, that goes into years, it is in effect giving you a term of imprisonment without the benefit of a trial.
One of the attorneys who brought the matter to court, John Clark, says he's looking forward to the appeal. However, he is questioning the motive.
I'm quite sure that any of their experts who look at this case will find that at least the judge made a decision on at least 10 different bases. At least the basis that said that the Emergency Power Act is passed on a section of the Constitution which is repealed. I do not see how on God's earth they can appeal that, because it is quite clear that that section was repealed, and therefore one question whether or not this appeal is done just to save face or to ensure that it already be done in the interest of justice, but time will tell.
The 5 men who were detained are Everton Douglas, who had been detained for 177 days, Nicholas Heath for 361 days, Courtney Hall for 395 days, Courtney Thompson was in custody for 365 days, and Gavin Noble for 431 days. Justice Bertram Morrison said the detention times were remarkable given that none of the men had been charged with any offense. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
A new study by the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, says children in Jamaica and the scores of other countries face grim prospects due to disruptions in their education because of the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to the devastating impact on children's mental, physical, and emotional health, the report estimates that the pandemic will also negatively impact the level of income they will receive as adults. More from Debian Wright.
The IDB said the study is the first to simulate losses due to pre-primary program closures because of the COVID-19 pandemic on future earnings when current preschool-age children become adults in 140 countries. The Washington-based financial institution said its specialists analyzed the countries with a combined population of 6.4 billion people. It described the results as alarming. For example, the study says closure of preschool for 6 months means losses in future salaries equivalent to 3.5% of gross domestic product in Jamaica. This study says public policy must mitigate the effects of preschool closures to reduce potential unprecedented losses in early childhood, particularly for children from poorer backgrounds. It said a better distribution of internet access, computers and other electronic devices, and creation of more hospitable and safer environments at home for early childhood education are some of the examples of policies that could preserve children's physical, mental, and emotional development immediately and in the long run.
A public health expert is projecting that as many as 17,000 Jamaicans could die from COVID-19 if the spread continues on the current trajectory. Associate Professor at the School of Public Health at the University of Technology, Dr. Alverston Bailey, says with the rapid spread of the virus, it's time for a reality check for Jamaicans. He notes the Health Ministry's prediction that about 1.5 million Jamaicans will contract COVID-19. Dr. Bailey says the current death rate is of great concern.
The most sobering fact we need to reflect on is that with a present death rate of 1.1%, approximately 17,000 Jamaicans might die. This catastrophe is totally preventable. Jamaicans must therefore recognize the clear and present danger that they face and assume personal responsibility for the health and well-being of themselves and of their family.
In the meantime, the island has recorded another 3 additional COVID-19 related deaths within the last 24 hours, bringing the death toll to 70. The deaths include a 69-year-old man from a St. Catherine address, a 56-year-old woman of a Portland address who had comorbidities, and a 52-year-old woman of a St. Anne address who also had comorbidities. Meanwhile, 155 positive COVID-19 cases were recorded in the last 24 hours. This has pushed the country's case count to 5,143 cases, which were recorded in 13 parishes. Now, Kingston and St. Andrew, with 59, recorded the highest number of cases, followed by St. James with 35 and Westmoreland 11. Trelawney is the only parish that did not record any new case in the last 24 hours. The Health Ministry says 124 persons are in hospital, with 29 of them being moderately ill. Another 7 persons are considered critically ill. In the meantime, 57 persons have recovered from the respiratory illness, bringing total number of recoveries to 1,407. And the latest statistics on confirmed COVID-19 cases in Latin America and the Caribbean show that they continue to increase. Now, according to the Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Resources Center, Brazil has the highest number of confirmed COVID-19 cases with a record 4.55 million. The Dominican Republic has the most confirmed cases among Caribbean countries with 108,000. Haiti has 8,600 cases. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Jamaica has 5,143. Cuba has 5,091. Suriname currently stands at 4,723. Trinidad and Tobago at 3,853. Aruba 3,551, and Bahamas 3,177 cases. Now, Guyana has 2,269 cases, while Belize has recorded 1,536 cases, while Guadeloupe remains at 1,363. Other countries in the region with confirmed COVID-19 cases are Martinique with 1,122, Turks and Caicos with 668, St. Martin 330, Cayman Islands 208, Barbados 185, Bermuda 178. Countries which have recorded fewer than 100 cases include Antigua and Barbuda with 95, St. Vincent and the Grenadines 64, St. Lucia 27, and Dominica with 25. Now, countries with no new cases are Grenada with 24, St. Kitts and Nevis with 17, Montserrat with 13, and Anguilla with only 3 cases. Chief Executive Officer at the Mandura Regional Hospital in Manchester, Alwyn Miller, says more staff is needed to manage the spike in COVID-19 cases in the parish. The Ministry of Health recently confirmed that Jamaica has reached the community spread stage of the outbreak. As a result, the hospital has been implementing additional measures such as the preparation of 2 isolation wards and providing adequate PPEs. The facility has also received new chairs to encourage physical distancing.
Members of the public that come to the hospital at this time. These chairs are located in our accident and emergency department just outside our doctors' offices. and certainly will aid us in terms of looking after our patients. At this point in time, we have enough resources. However, we see it where over time we are going to need additional personnel. So we are starting that process, or we have started that process of getting additional.
Now, he was speaking at the handing over ceremony for the chairs at the hospital over the weekend. The chairs, which are valued at $250,000, were donated to the facility by JN Circle. And new guidance from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, reports that coronavirus can be spread through the air. Prior to this, the CDC website reported that COVID-19 was spread between people within 6 feet of each other. It had also previously said coronavirus was spread when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or talks. Now, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is indicating coronavirus is more contagious. According to new guidance on the website, COVID-19 can be spread through viral particles in the air. The updated CDC page also changed the language around asymptomatic transmission on Friday. The update says people who are infected but do not show symptoms spread the virus instead of implying they might be able to do so. One prominent researcher calls the new language on the CDC website a major improvement based on the latest science. Now we take a break on the midday news, but please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Continuing the news. The case involving 3 police officers, which was set to get underway this morning at the St. James Parish Court, is now on hold. It's understood that one of the lawyers representing the police officers did not arrive when the case was called to be heard. The 3 police officers are standing trial for the death of Mario Dean. Mr. Dean was beaten on August 3, 2014, while in custody at the Barnett Street Police Station in Montego Bay, St. James. He died 3 days later at the Cornwall Regional Hospital. Police Corporal Elaine Stewart and Constables Juliana Cleven and Marlon Grant were arrested and charged with manslaughter, misconduct in a public office, and perverting the course of justice in relation to Mr. Dean's death. 2 inmates who pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the case were released in July after being sentenced to 5 years and 6 months. They were released based on time served, having been in custody for 6 years. Business operators in St. Elizabeth continue to be targeted by armed robbers. The latest incident happened this morning at an apartment in Beadles Boulevard in Santa Cruz. Reports are that about 8 o'clock, 4 men armed with guns held up and robbed a businessman and the owner of the apartment.
Knowing that this is a nice and a peaceful community, and all these things are going on at a bright, nice Monday morning, and I don't feel good about that. 2, I think, was left in the car, and one was downstairs, one was in here with my wife, one was upstairs. So I think about 3, and then one was out there time to go on the ground. So it's 4, and then I think maybe 2 more might have left in the car.
It's reported that a shootout ensued between the security team assigned to the apartment and the robbers. The residents say there have been an upsurge in robberies in the area and are calling for the police to do more.
I would like for the security patrols to increase and the neighborhood watch to be more proactive. And basically, you know, they need to nab the thieves, them, you know. They need to step up them game.
The sum of money stolen has not been determined. News overseas now. An epic battle is brewing following the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. President Donald Trump is likely to nominate a replacement soon, while Democrats say the process should wait until after the 2020 election. More from the CNN.
As mourners hold nationwide vigils for Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Republicans plan for her successor.
Now, it says the president is supposed to fill the seat, right? And that's what we're going to do. We're going to fill the seat.
That could lead to a supreme fight.
She said, "My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed."
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is pressing for a vote, but can likely only lose 3 GOP senators for the nomination to pass. And there is an elephant in McConnell's room.
But he created a new rule, the McConnell rule. Absolutely no hearing, no vote for a nominee in an election year. Period. no caveats.
More than 4 years ago, McConnell led Republicans who refused to have a hearing or vote on then-President Barack Obama's Supreme Court nominee, Merrick Garland, saying,
"This appointment should be made by the next president."
But the White House says this is a matter of apples and oranges.
I reject the notion there's hypocrisy. As I said, the historical precedent is when your party's in power and the president nominates consistently, going back to George Washington, the party has continued to confirm those nominees.
And at least 13 people are dead after a building collapsed near Mumbai, India. 18 families were living in the 3-story building when it gave way early this morning. Authorities say scores of people are trapped in the rubble. So far, 20 people have been rescued, including a 4-year-old child. Rescue workers are attempting to reach all the people still trapped in the rubble. Time now for sports. The Reggae Boys may not be in action until 2021 after the Jamaica Football Federation was forced to pull the plug on negotiations from games next month. In a release on Sunday, the JFF revealed that they will forego the proposed friendly games in the United States in October. Jamaica was in negotiations to play the United States and a top Central American team in the U.S., but the continued rise in the number of cases of COVID-19 has forced the postponement of both games for health and safety reasons. JFF General Secretary Dalton Wint explained the reason behind the decision.
Not to play any international games in the United States, both men and women. So their directors took that decision last week. So we were close to playing 2 games against the United States.
Wint added that the current rise in cases locally has also prevented the JFF from finding an alternative. Opportunities to play games in preparation for the World Cup qualifiers, which start in June next year. And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashon Brown. Join us at 7 for a Primetime News package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon and have a great week.